So the first verse in John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. And what has come into being, in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overtake it." That's from the Revised Standard Version. I always like to go look at multiple versions because, especially some that attempt to update it in a little bit more modern understanding. So the Voice says this. It says, "Before time itself was measured, the Voice was speaking. The Voice was and is God. This celestial word remained ever present with the Creator. His speech shaped the entire cosmos, immersed in the practice of creating. All things that exist were birthed in him. His breath filled all things with a living, breathing light, a light that thrives in the depths of darkness." The word, the voice, is not necessarily one that is a human vibration of speaking or of using this way that we would think of as the word and the voice in our world. It's not some booming voice that at the beginning of all creation said, "Let there be," even though that it was the energy of that we're told in Genesis that began it all. In the Greek version, in the early versions of the Bible, it used the word logos. And logos has meanings of word and thought, but also principle and reason. The translation of this word allows us to understand that it's not the same as our human expression of words, but it is the principle of expression that is in and through and acts through all of life. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, said in The Revealing Word, his metaphysical understanding, that this definition of word or logos defines the agency by which God reveals himself or herself or itself. The word gives order and regularity to the movement of all things and is all things. And then he goes on to say, as part of that logos, as part of a participant in that our word has power and is creative. Today, we're considering the power of the spoken word from our perspective here in this human realm and the way that we use it in our lives as we continue this exploration of practical metaphysics using the book by Unity luminary Eric Butterworth. Building upon this metaphysical understanding that we have been exploring all in the month of January, so with a foundational piece that we are in eachness in the allness of God. Do you remember that one? That was the first Sunday we started, we explored how it is that we are not only the fullness, but our individualized expressions of what we call this mysterious and mystical thing called God. We're created, if you want to think about it this way in more modern terms, from God DNA. That's our inheritance, just as we inherit physical DNA from our parents. And our soul's journey is to reveal, to express, to experience our divine nature. It's not about what we accomplish, but it's how effectively we've been able to be that divine light of God in our world. Jesus was not the word itself, as many have understood it to be. Jesus was, as we are, both a divine and human being through which God was able to fully reveal itself. He was the full demonstration of what it looks like, what the experience is like to be one with that allness and express it as his own unique presence in the world. Last week, we considered how our thoughts and our feelings influence what we reveal, what we create, and what we express. Charles Fillmore called it the law of mind action. It has been called by many names, probably in more popular times. It's been called the law of attraction. But it's this creative process that we have been given through our ability to consciously think, feel, believe, and act and create in our world. And through science, we're recognizing what mystical explorers have intuitively experienced, that it's not the thoughts or the feelings that have this creative power. It is the energy, it is the vibration of them that gets expressed. If you look at this chart here, and I know it might be hard for some of you to see in the back, but the top bar is the actual measurement of the feeling of frustration and all of the thoughts that accompany it when we're thinking thoughts that are of frustration. And the lower graph is the vibration of gratitude. And you can see how very differently they show up, not only in the way that we measure our bodies, that energy happening in our bodies, but you can feel it. You can feel that vibrational energy. Have you ever walked into a room where there was some stuff going down, and even if nobody was speaking a word, you could feel that there was some tension in that room, that there was some anger in the room? You don't have to have words. You can feel the vibration of it. And the same is true when there is this feeling of great love and joy. You walk into the room and it immediately can change your own internal vibration. The same is true for our words. They carry a vibrational pattern to them. And it's not so much the words themselves, but it is the energy through which we speak the words. There's no magical words that we need to say, just like there's no magical prayer that we need to learn in order for God to say, oh, okay, yeah, I like those words. I'm going to bring that into being. It is the intention, it is the vibration, it is the power that those words have behind them. Words often reflect, when we're unconscious, habitual thoughts and emotions and beliefs, which then in turn create similar experiences. We get in sort of this loop. We say, life is horrible, and then we keep expressing that, and it shows up. It says, oh, that's the vibration you want to say. That's exactly what we'll see, what we'll experience. And if we want to create different, assumably more positive, more loving experiences in our life and in our world, we need to then be conscious of and be more directive of our thoughts and our emotions and our words in new ways. So the question becomes, how do we do that? Sounds pretty easy. It's actually very simple. It's just not easy. The author suggests that all good communication comes from inner communion. I want you to hear that again, that all good communication comes from inner communion. And what he means by that is we tend to speak impetuously or reflexively. The words just pop out of our mouth before we can even give it a thought. And the discipline, the practice is to begin to listen before we speak. To take time, to take a breath, to take a pause, and check in before we respond. It's back to that difference between just reacting and having the presence to respond, to listen to whatever that guidance is that's showing up within us, and then say what you're listening to. So we listen, we see what guidance shows up, and then that's what we express out. And it takes conscious effort to do that. Sometimes we may just have to say, if we're in a conversation and all of a sudden things start getting ratcheted up and the words we're speaking tend to upset the other person, and then we get upset, and it just starts going downhill from there. The best thing we can do is say, can you give me just a minute? I need to run to the restroom or to somewhere, and just go breathe for a few minutes, check in, and then see how you can go back and respond to what's going on, even if it's just to say, you know what, this doesn't feel like it's the right time for us to have this conversation. Not you're upsetting me, but I'm feeling upset. Let's revisit this at another time so that we can get ourselves into a better space. So I want to invite you today, as we go into our time of meditation, to see if you can't tap into that inner guidance. And I want you to pick a particular instance that's going on in your life right now, whether it was a conversation that you've had that didn't go well, whether it's something you're really struggling with out in the world. And as we begin to bring our attention inward, we want to take that thoughts and feelings about that, to remember that into our minds and into our hearts, and see if we can't engage with it in a different way. So wherever you're at right now, just close your eyes if you're comfortable, or focus on some point in the room. Set aside whatever you might be holding on to, and physically or in mind or in heart, just park it over to the side for a minute so that you can bring all of your attention into this moment, to be fully present and awake to how spirit, how that energy of love is seeking to move and to express as you. Breath is always a centering point for each of us. As we breathe in and are present and awake to that breathing process of the air coming in and the air being released, we know that that is happening only in the present moment. And so as we place our attention there, we begin to allow ourselves to be open to all that this present moment has to offer us. And take that thinking part of you, imagine that part of you that we associate with that in our heads, in our brain, and just invite it to slowly sink down into our heart space until it comes to gently rest in the center of our bodies. So that we can infuse our thoughts with that energy of divine awareness. In fact, we want to focus on that part that's typically associated with our gut, our pelvic region, this intuitive part of us, and we want to draw that up into our heart space too, so that we have divine thought, divine feelings and energy, and divine intuition all present in this now moment, in our own awareness and consciousness. And into this sacred space, I invite you to remember a recent conversation, interaction that left you feeling disconnected from that sense of wholeness and divine love. And as you are replaying it, especially as you pay attention to your reactions to it, just pause that replay. Take a breath. And in this center of holiness that you are in this moment, listen for how divine wisdom, God's love, would respond. Just listen. And if you are able to receive in this moment, ask the question, how can I be a presence in the healing of this interaction, of this challenging moment? How can I be a presence of love? What is mine to do in that? And once again, just take a few moments to allow that to arise into your awareness. And as you take one more deep breath, make a commitment in this moment to show up in that experience in a new way, in a way that brings the soul's desire to be the presence of God, the eyes, the ears, the voice, the heart. And give thanks to know that there is this internal guidance always available to you. There is the capacity that you can draw upon to change those reactive patterns. And it is in that gratitude we begin to bring our attention back to this time and space. As we take one more breath that brings us fully back into our bodies, aware of the chair supporting us, and whenever we're ready, to bring our attention back into this room as you open your eyes. So Eric Butterworth suggests that one of the most effective ways that we can awaken to and shift the reactive and habitual ways in which we speak, especially around speaking, is what he calls to go on a 7-day verbal diet. It's very simple. It's really challenging to do. For the next 7 days, commit to pausing before you speak and listen for divine guidance before you articulate things. And try and put into words only those things that you want to see manifest in your life and in the world. It may be, again, having to say, I'm going to have to get back with you on that so that we have a chance to center ourselves, especially if the emotions have been triggered or our buttons have been pushed. But to simply try and be conscious every time that you're going to respond, and to ask, what would the divine part of me, how would they respond? You know, you can use that more popular vernacular, what would Jesus do in this moment? And the more you practice it, the quicker and easier it comes. Sometimes when it's a little fumbly anytime you're learning something, you're going to do it imperfectly, and you will probably likely forget to even do it half the time. But if you're willing, it's a good way to really experience what this would be like if we could not only think and feel from that place, but express from that place too. But if that sounds too daunting, here's another practice to increase this creative divine connection. As you go throughout your day, pay special attention to how you use your I am. And I know many of you have been around for a while, understand that whenever we say I am, we are speaking of our God qualities, our Godness. And when we put other words behind it, we are speaking from a place that is untrue. I am is the most powerful expression of your eachness in the allness of God. Notice how often you attach your I am to something that is not a God attribute, that is not one of those many facets of love, whether it's abundance or gratitude, compassion, non-judgment, joy, there's many, unlimited amounts of ways that love shows up. I remember when I did this exercise many years ago, I became aware that I had a habit of saying, I am so sick and tired of, fill in the blank. I am so sick and tired of this weather. I am so sick and tired of waking up so tired. I am so sick and tired and so sick and tired. Well, guess what? I was pretty sick and tired, mostly all the time. As you notice that, and we'll each have our own unique ones, then what you want to do is in that moment, or as often as you can, insert I feel or I think. So it's not denying that I'm having this experience, but I feel sick and tired rather than I am sick and tired. Can you hear the difference in that? So begin to practice. Whenever you're going to use I am, see if you, unless you're going to declare some level of truth, see if you can insert feel or think, and then if you can, to follow it up with some positive affirmation of your own divine nature. So it might be, I feel sick and tired, and I have the energy of God flowing through me, or whatever it might be. And here's a final one to practice with. So just, pick a few to just see how they show up in your own life. And that is to turn your oughtness into isness. And here's what that means. When you notice something, you find yourself complaining about something, whatever it might be, take some time to write down how you think the situation or feel the situation ought to be. How should the people that are a part of that situation think and feel? They should be blah, blah, blah. How do you think it should function? We can do the same thing when we notice we're shoulding on ourselves. I should be more peaceful or more loving or whatever we attach to it. And then turn whatever those oughts or shoulds into isness statements. So if you often say, well, this office should be a place of cooperation and trust, you can rewrite that in terms of divine realism to say, excuse me, this office is a place of cooperation and trust. May not be showing up yet, but that is the divine reality that we want to stand in around. And you can use the same process for ourselves, when we find ourselves directing it towards ourselves. And, I should exercise more. We can change that into, that's when I tell them, oh, I should do that. Instead of the shouldness, or I ought to exercise more, we want to change that into, one I like to do is, I live and move and have my being in God or in spirit. It doesn't necessarily mean I always exercise more, but it changes my energy. And it opens me up to know that I am that energetic being and to see myself moving in that. So whatever practice that you choose to explore, I just encourage you to approach the activity with a sense of curiosity and compassion. Don't let this be another thing that you go, I'm no good at that, and start beating yourself up because you're now noticing how often you are speaking from a place that doesn't express the truth that you know to be. And ultimately to remember that the positive difference that we make in our world is not necessarily through our thoughts, our feelings, our words, or even our actions. The positive difference comes through the vibration of love that they are infused with. We can do them imperfectly, but if we are doing them from that place of compassion, from that place of gratitude, from that place of wanting to be a healing presence in the world, then we make that positive difference because we are showing up as the ears and the eyes and the hands and the feet of God. Move you there. All right, well, it is time to share of our financial good with our spiritual community. It is through the gifts that we receive from all who are a part of this community and through the many other channels in which we know our good flows in and through us that allow us to do what's ours to do and to be here and be a presence for this community. In just a moment, the ushers are going to invite you to come up row by row, and you can place your gift in the large basket, and then in the small baskets, there's an affirmation that you can select to support you this week. And even if you share through our online giving, or this is not your Sunday to give, you can still come and be in the flow. Just put your hand over the basket, add a card that says, I give online into the basket, and also receive. This morning, we're also inviting you to, there's some little postcards down here about our upcoming Body, Mind, Spirit Fest. So we'd love for you to take one or two and share them with a friend and invite them to come and be a part of this annual fundraiser. And we just are holding the vision that this will attract many more people. Not only will be a fundraiser for our community, but will also expand the awareness of who we are and what we offer and invite them to also come and be a part of all of the other activities we have. So as we take what we offer into our hands and into our hearts and infuse it with this energy of love, we bless it as we affirm together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother God. And as we go into this day, connected with that divine presence within us, we go knowing our prayer for protection. We'll do it as call and response. The light of God surrounds us.
I am the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
I am the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
I am the power of God.
The presence of God watches over us.
I am the presence of God.
Together, wherever we are, God is, and all is well.